Hi, welcome back, Rocc Forever. We got a very special episode for you. He is not only the keyboardist, but singer, songwriter, band leader of so many of your favorite songs. Please welcome Edgar Winter. Edgar.
Hello there.
Greetings.
Are y'all ready to rock and roll? That's what
Man, we certainly are. Coming all the way from Beaumont, Texas, you and your brother Johnny. You were born in 46, he in 44. And your father made music. So music was around the house. It sounded like you guys heard and felt the music from a very early age.
That is true. My dad played guitar and banjo, played alto sax in a swing band in his youth, sang in the choir. He had a barbershop quartet that would come over to the house and sang. My mother played beautiful classical piano. And as kids, growing up, because music was a part of our household and sort of a family activity, I thought music was, I thought everyone was musical. And we didn't find out until we tried to put bands together with our friends around the neighborhood. What, your daddy didn't show you no chords? So then I realized, oh, this is like a kind of a special thing. But, my granddad played violin, fiddle, and great-grandfather played trumpet. So I thought everybody played.
Yeah, you kind of know what you know around you, it's until you get out and realize that people didn't have those opportunities you did. But recording by 15, of course, Johnny's first album came out in 69, and in 70 you put together Edgar Winter's White Trash. What was your feeling then? Obviously Johnny was starting to do his thing and make records and do shows with all the great blues people. What was your impetus to put together White Trash?
Well, first of all, I should explain that Johnny and I are totally different in this respect. We have different musical tastes, and we both love music, but we love different kinds of music, and a lot of the same music as well. But Johnny, ever since I can remember, he had that vision, that dream, that drive, and that determination. He was going to be a star. And he was Johnny Cool Daddy Winter with the pompadour and the shades and the guitars and the girls. And I was like the quiet kid that played all the instruments. So it was great synergy between us because Johnny loved the spotlight and I was quite content to avoid it whenever possible. So he'd figure out what songs he wanted to do, and he'd learn the guitar parts and the words, and then I would figure out all of the other parts and then show our friends around the neighborhood all the different parts to play. So when Johnny did finally become famous, it was a total surprise to me. It was like a shock. I never envisioned that happening. And I kind of just always wanted to be just a good musician was fine for me. I just loved music, the beauty of chords, harmony, rhythm. It was my own sort of personal, private escape world, whereas Johnny reached out to the world with his music. For me, it was like an inner voyage of discovery, the music within. So when he became famous, it was like a total surprise. And then he invited me up to New York to play on his first several records, and to be a special guest with his trio. And he was like doing real concert shows. And I'd never done anything on a concert level before. So it was totally new to me and really new to Johnny as well, for that matter. But he'd do the first part of the show, and now I'm going to bring on my little brother Edgar. And I'd walk in, nobody even knew Johnny had a brother, and they'd say, wow, they look just alike. And it was really an interesting, unusual kind of situation. And I always kind of wanted to stay out of the way. Since Johnny loves traditional blues and the old style acoustic blues that people like Lightning Hawkins and Muddy Waters and Little Walter and Howlin' Wolf. And I gravitated more toward the urban style of blues, people like Ray Charles, Bobby Blue Bland, B.B. King, T-Bone Walker. So our taste being somewhat different, my first band was White Trash, which was more like a Ray Charles style of band, a big, it was pretty much modeled after Ray's band, 4-piece horn section. And we used to go to, if you think rock and roll has energy, if you ever been to one of those black Pentecostal tent revivals.
Oh yeah, it's a happening. I mean, it's a celebration.
I mean, it's like rock pales in comparison to that kind of energy. And I think that gospel is probably the most overlooked and least understood element in music. It's like the flip side of the blues. But as far as I'm concerned, the whole style of rock screaming vocals is derived from all the great black preacher gospel singers. And that's what we wanted to do with White Trash, was to try to bring that kind of energy to people on stage, but in a rock and roll context. So that's what that band was all about. And I felt like, Johnny loving the blues, he loved White Trash, and there were certain similarities and certain differences, but I didn't feel like I was encroaching on his territory, even though it was a kind of a blues band. It was different, in its way. And I think White Trash was the rawest, funkiest, most soulful white R&B band in the history of rock music, as far as I'm concerned. And we had a great time with that band.
Well, no doubt about it. You and Jerry LaCroix on vocals and sax, and you had musicians of Texas and Louisiana, and of course you did the live album at the Apollo. I mean, like you say, a lot of people that go to conservative churches don't really understand the full gospel experience that really R&B and soul and so much of the blues sprung from. I mean, even Little Richard, I mean, he created that rock and roll singing style that everybody uses today. I mean, it's the trademarks, but super underrated. It'd be great to put the spotlight on more and more of the great black gospel church singers. But obviously, as Johnny continued his blues and his thing, you formed the Edgar Winter Group in '72, bringing together Dan Hartman, Ronnie Montrose, and Chuck Ruff. And that's obviously, an exclamation mark after White Trash, that now you've got the giant hit Frankenstein and the re-release of Free Ride. Tell us about, making of that record and how that continued to fill your musical passions, coming from White Trash into They Only Come Out at Night.
Well, it was very different. And in all honesty, I sort of put that band together. It was a massive sort of talent search. I had decided that I wanted to put together the quintessential all-American rock band. And I wanted people that were not only great players, but that had stage presence, charisma, people that looked the part and could contribute to the band, not just as musicians, but in terms of writing and the overall direction. So the first person that came to light in that process was Dan Hartman. I'll never forget hearing his demo tape. I just said, man, this guy is incredible. He's a great writer, great singer. And he was a guitar player at the time. He loved Hendrix. He was a Hendrix freak. And I had to convince Dan to switch to bass. Then Ronnie Montrose, I had been aware of, playing with Van Morrison and Boz Scaggs. I'd seen him live. And I thought he was a great balance to. Dan had a sort of a youthful innocence and enthusiasm about, like, if you listen to Free Ride, it has that kind of feeling to it. And Ronnie had more of the edge, like the dark edge. He was like the bad boy guitar figure. And I thought that dichotomy and that chemistry worked really well in the band. Then Ronnie suggested Chuck Ruff as the drummer, and Chuck was just like a ray of sunshine. He just loved to shake his hair and play the drums, and had a great groove. And he was like the perfect drummer. And at that point, you know, when we started the band, I felt really positive and good about the whole thing. And the point I'd like to make is that I really did that album, They Only Come Out at Night, for Clive Davis. And Clive signed me as an artist shortly after I came to New York and started playing with Johnny. And then Johnny's manager became more interested in what I was doing. And he said, well, I can set up a meeting with Clive Davis. And I just, like, as I said, I never thought about music as a career. And I don't know, had it not been for Johnny, there's no telling what direction I would have gone. Maybe a struggling jazz musician or an engineer, or there's no way of knowing, but I doubt that I would be where I am today. And Johnny, of course, is my all-time musical hero. And that was my reason for doing the album Brother Johnny, which we'll get into. But as far as the Edgar Winter Group, I felt like I had done the Entrance album, and then I had done White Trash, and the White Trash records went gold, but I had received really generous advances, and Clive had believed in me as an artist and had given me that opportunity. And so I felt like it's time to give him something that he can really work as a record that would have some hit potential. And I also, for my own part, wanted to seek a wider audience. And I felt like, because a lot of, I love all styles of music. I love blues and rock and country and jazz and classical. And I've never been able to understand why it's separated as it is, and have never really agreed with. It seems like almost like musical segregation. It's like, okay, all you cowboys are going to play the country music, and the black people are going to play the blues, and so forth and so on. And I felt like it was more a convenience for record companies that want to target a specific audience. They want you to be either a rock guy or a blues guy or a jazz guy or whatever it is. So they know how to promote the records. And I always sort of rebelled against that. And what I always wanted to do was, particularly with the Entrance album, was to break down some of those senseless musical boundaries and prejudices, and make people aware of all the music that's out there to broaden musical horizons. So I felt like with the Edgar Winter Group that if I could get, reach a wider audience, that I would be able to then sort of evolve musically and try to introduce some of those elements that I really cared about, and make people more aware musically. And that's what I've tried to do. Still am working at it. So there you go.
Yeah, music should be a hybrid of all that you feel, all that you know, all that you love. And these business people that want to put people in a box and keep them in a box, and well, you can't really cross that line because we're promoting you in this market. I mean, it's just it's ridiculous. And I think the 70s was definitely a more open decade where artists could kind of be more unique. It got more and more worse, I think, by the 80s, where it got real corporate and they wanted to, like I say,
Yeah.
have a real clear line. Which box do you fit in? But you, of course, your talent is crossed over to so much. You played sax, of course, on Meatloaf's All Revved Up and Nowhere to Go and the big
Yeah.
Bat Out of Hell album. And of course, Dan Hartman goes solo with Instant Replay, and Tina Turner, Simply the Best, and David Lee Ross remake of Just a Gigolo. And of course,
James Brown.
yeah, Rick Derringer.
Living in America.
Yeah, Michael McDonald, Todd Rundgren, of course, Johnny, Ronnie, all of that. But let's talk about the Brother Johnny album. I mean, I know when Johnny passed, it was hard for you to, do a project like this, but the time is right now to help cement his legacy, hopefully pay tribute to his songs and keep his music alive. Now, I know you've got a who's who on the record, 17 tracks, and everybody from Joe Bonamassa, Kenny Wayne Shepherd, of course, Billy Gibbons, Joe Walsh, Ringo Starr, Steve Lukather, Dole Bramhall. You've got a who's who on here. How long did this album take? What, from start to finish, what was the process?
Well, it took almost 3 years. And as you had mentioned, I never expected to make this record. And shortly after Johnny's death, I was approached by several different people with regard to making an album, and it just didn't feel right to me. But there were deal offers out there, and that's exactly what they felt like to me, was deal offers. In other words, people sensing an opportunity, a business opportunity, and it felt like exploiting Johnny's name for more commercial purposes. And I didn't want to do that. And I just was not emotionally ready either. I was devastated. And I spent years, 3 or 4 years not making that record. But finally, I had the idea in the beginning when the first tour that I did after his death was something that we were scheduled to play on together, called the Rocc and Blues Fest, and we were going to play with our respective bands and then do jamming at the end. And I thought this was surely going to be canceled, but the promoters wanted it to go forward as planned with me and my band as the headliners. And I said, oh, this is going to be highly emotional and maybe difficult. But it turned out to be so different. Like the first night after I did Frankenstein, and you did mention Frankenstein, we didn't talk about that, but maybe we'll save that for another day. But I did Johnny Be Good and Rock and Roll Hoochie Coo and maybe Highway 61. I don't remember exactly, but I dedicated the end of the set to Johnny, and it was just it gave me a great source of strength and comfort to play that music. And everybody on the tour was so kind and supportive, and would come up and jam, and it turned into a kind of a tradition. And that's what started me thinking about it, that this was not just that it was Johnny's devoted, loyal fans that really wanted to see something like this happen. And so I asked my wife, Monique, about it, and I would like to acknowledge Monique as having been the person probably most instrumental in changing my mind, and to make the record Brother Johnny, because as I said, I was kind of against doing it. And when we talked about it, I trust her intuition more than my analytical thinking at times. And she said, well, sure. I said, you always speak about how Johnny is your all-time musical hero, and you wouldn't be where you are today if it weren't for him. So here's your opportunity, to acknowledge that. I think you owe that to yourself, to Johnny, and to the world. So I never dreamed that it would take as long to do. And had it not been for COVID, I'm sure that it would not have. But it was a very organic process and took on a life of its own. The first thing that I decided, well, the first question in my mind was, well, should this be a straight ahead blues record, just a tribute to Johnny's legacy, or should it be a more personal dedication from me to my brother based on some of my own particular personal preferences and songs that I happen to love? And I felt that it should be a combination of both. So, you know, I want to thank Monique for talking me into it. She gave me the strength and courage, you know, to make the record. The next person, Ross Hogarth, started out as just the engineer and mixer. And I'd worked with Ross on my last album, Rebel Road, and he did such a great job. I had decided I'm never going to work with another mixer, engineer, and possible producer. So Ross had so many wonderful suggestions. It would not be the album that it is without Ross. He suggested people like Doyle Bramhall, Phil X, who I wasn't that familiar with. He suggested David Grissom, a great guitarist and fellow Texan who I didn't know much about. John McPhee, he suggested with the Doobie Brothers to do the slide on Highway 61. He also mentioned toward the end of the album, he said, oh, we got to do something. There's nothing by Muddy Waters on here. And, you know, Johnny just loved, he idolized Muddy. And I think the high point of Johnny's life and career was getting to make those records and get to play with Muddy. And I said, you're absolutely right. How could I overlook that? So, and now the next person I want to mention is Bruce Corto, who is the president of Corto Valley Records, the label that the record is on. When I met Bruce, he wanted to do the record for all the right reasons. He said, you can take as long as you want, do whatever you want. He just said, I love Johnny's music and I want to bring that to the world. You know, he deserves to be recognized. So, and he suggested Bobby Rush for Mojo. I picked Mojo. To me, that's almost like Muddy's anthem. And I said, that's the one to do. So first thing we did is decide on the songs. And I thought, well, the first, obviously, Still Alive and Well and Rock and Roll Hoochie Coo. Both songs written by Rick Derringer, particularly for Johnny. And I knew that those were the first two that I thought of. And then there were a lot of Johnny's early songs like Meantown Blues and I'm Yours and I'm Hers that were representative of his early writing. And I want to say here that, of course I'm prejudiced, but I feel like Johnny, if you think of all the greatest guitar players and the most recognizable guitar players that, people like Jeff Beck and Jimmy Page and in the people like that are no longer with us, like Hendrix and Stevie Ray Vaughan, I feel like he belongs in that elite upper echelon of guitar players. And I think that all the people that I mentioned would agree with that. Eric Clapton, all of those guys were a great inspiration, for Johnny and for me. And songs like Meantown and I'm Yours and I'm Hers demonstrated a facet of Johnny's playing that I think a lot of people are unaware of or don't fully appreciate. And that was his fusion of blues and rock. And I like when I first heard Meantown Blues, I said, wow, it's like this old primitive kind of slide riff, like almost like a John Lee Hooker kind of thing, but it has all of this intensity and energy of rock and roll. And how did he do that? And you know, so I said, well, those songs absolutely have to be on. And then I started thinking of the songs like that are my own particular favorites, like Stranger, which is very uncharacteristic of Johnny's writing, a beautiful ballad, very sensitive, and reveals a sort of vulnerability that Johnny did not often display. Songs like what's the shuffle? Self-Destructive Blues. I always loved that. It was always my favorite Johnny Winter shuffle. And then Drown in My Own Tears. Oh, that one just, I always felt like Johnny did that song especially for me when he recorded his version on the first Columbia record, because he knew how much I loved Ray, and I think he wanted to give me the opportunity to do something in my style. And he said, you know, just play the piano and write out the horn charts, do the horn parts. Let's do it just like Ray would have done it. And so when I did it on this album, I felt like I was singing it back to him the same way that he sung it to me so many years ago when he was so young and vital and so alive. And I felt like I was not only singing that to him, but all my bandmates that have passed away. You know, I'm the last surviving member of the Edgar Winter group. Dan Hartman, Chuck Ruff, and Ronnie are all gone. Jerry LaCroix with White Trash, the singer, Bobby Ramirez, the drummer. And to my parents, it was just highly emotional, and I choked up and cried on, you know, trying to get through it. But finally, that was the most emotional song for me on the record. But overall, it was just such a joyous and uplifting experience making the record. And there was so much love that went into that album. The people that played on it, I just cannot thank enough. And I think maybe of all of those people, I think Joe Bonamassa came the closest to channeling Johnny's style. His renditions of both Self-Destructive Blues and Meantown Blues are just incredible. They have, like, Johnny, the thing to me that separated Johnny, he had this relentless intensity in his jamming and his soloing. I used to call him the Coltrane of blues rock. And if you know jazz, like, the thing about Coltrane was when, like, he had this endlessly inventive stream of consciousness, and he could play he could extend himself as a soloist and play chorus after chorus after chorus, and never repeat himself. And that's the way Johnny was when he started to jam. And there is a lot of jamming on this record. And you mentioned the music of the 70s. I wanted to make it not only a tribute to Johnny, but a tribute to the blues and a tribute to guitar. And I think, I hope I've succeeded in all of that. But, just talking about Joe, he came in with an old Firebird and a Fender Bassman amp, same rig, and he just blew me away. Like, I felt like Johnny was in the room. Yeah, and I had that experience. The same kind of thing happened with Warren Haynes when he came in to do Memory Pain. He walked up to the mic, he plugged in his guitar, and he did the whole song, start to finish. And that's like highly unusual. Usually when guitar players come in, they'll say, oh, let me lay down the rhythm track, and then we'll focus on the solo, and I'll get that down, and then I'll go out and sing the song. But Warren played the song. And that's the blues. He did it exactly the way Johnny would have done it playing with the blues trio. He just went out there and did it. And that was just so killer to me. I couldn't believe he did it that way. And that's the kind of thing that I'm talking about with this album. And there is a lot of jamming on it. And I happen to love that. Being a jazz guy, that's all about spontaneity. And jamming is the rock form of jazz in that regard. But I questioned when I was doing it, maybe I'm making too much of a musician's album, but that's what Johnny did, and it wouldn't be honest if it weren't done that way. So that gives you an idea. After picking the songs, I didn't want to tell anybody what song to do. I did not associate any particular artist with any particular song. And like in the very beginning, the field was completely open. And when I mentioned Joe, when I got to Self-Destructive Blues, he said, wow, you're really going to do Self-Destructive? That's my favorite Johnny song. It's the first song I ever heard, and I learned that, and I played it with my band. He was so excited. And Warren Haynes was exactly that way when I got to Memory Pain. He said, well, you can stop right there. That's the one I want to do. And in a lot of cases, that's the way this album came about. So much love in it, and that's a basic overview. So go on and fire away. More questions, please.
Well, yeah, it's such a masterpiece. You can tell that unlike a traditional record label or project where you'd be under the gun and on a deadline and just like an assembly line, that you could kind of sit back. And we definitely give a standing ovation to Monique and to Ross and to Bruce to allow you and encourage you to just, make the ultimate statement and really not hold back. And you can tell that all these players, they did it for the love of Johnny, the love of music. And it was really, the way music should be made. It shouldn't be a business thing. It should be as creative as possible and allow the listener to just, dive deep, just fall into the amazing camaraderie. Even though you have all these different players, the common theme is obviously Johnny's songs and Muddy and everybody that he loved. And you can just tell. I mean, you got the song with Joe Walsh, Ringo Starr, and Michael McDonald. Nothing in the world is going to bring these people together unless it's the music they love, something they want to play. It's really, I can't thank you enough for making this record. And we know it's going to stand the test of time. And it is the ultimate statement, for Johnny. And I know a lot of people will go out and discover and rediscover his albums and his music. And maybe they knew some of it, but this is going to spark like, wow, I want to go hear the original of Meantown Blues or Self-Destructive.
Exactly. That's what I'm hoping will happen.
Yeah. Well, I think congratulations to you and the team. I think it's really, the ultimate statement. We encourage everybody to go out, get the album, Brother Johnny. It is so deep and so loving. It will become one of your favorite records. And Edgar, we thank you so much for making it.
Well, you're certainly more than welcome. And I'd just like to take this opportunity to thank all the fans who have followed my career as well as that of my brother Johnny's throughout all of these years. And it's meant the world to us to be able to do what we most love and see you all out there rocking and having a great time. And so, you know, if you follow Johnny's music, of course, you're going to love this album. But if you just love the blues or you just love guitar, it really is a deep album. I don't know if you've seen, I'm going to hold up this is the vinyl cover. And this is like a 3D holographic image that shifts back and forth from Johnny's to my image. And there's a 32-page booklet that I wrote myself that tells the entire story of the making of the album and a lot of personal information about Johnny and myself. A lot of the things that we've covered here in this interview. So, and I want to thank you for, you know, coming on and being able to talk to everybody. But I think this is going to be a beautiful addition to anyone's collection and something hopefully like that. The thing I love about music is when it's done with that kind of heart connection, it really will transport you to a different place. Suddenly, whether I'm making music or listening to a great artist that's playing music, it's that spiritual quality of being part of something that is beyond yourself. And for that moment in time, you forget your cares and worries, and you're just totally in that moment. And I hope that I will create that kind of a journey, and that it'll be one that people will want to take over and over again. So my thanks to you for being on the show, and thank all the fans, and get ready to rock and roll.